Hi, I'm Tom, and in this video I'm going to be doing some character conversion, some minor conversions of the monopose boys models to not have duplicates, and also wrapping up some minor conversions or fixes to existing models. And with this video, I should be wrapping up all of the conversion and building work for Orktober. I probably won't make all of my goals, but I will make most of them. And if not painted in Orktober, then my yearly goal is still just to have them painted before we hit next year. And I think that's very manageable and way less stressful. Enough intro, let's get into it. First of all, I want to make a mech. I already have a mech, but of course his loadout is no longer valid. I also have several big mechs, their loadouts are also invalid. So this time I'm going to make a simple mech that has a correct loadout. It's definitely not the loadout that I would go with, but here we go. So the loadout of a mech boy is a custom slugger, basically a very bad plasma pistol that'll probably kill yourself. So I'm going to be using a custom mega blaster and cutting it down to size and fitting on a slugger frame. Fortunately, this is quite easy to do as you don't have to chop up too much to align them. Also had the idea with this guy holding it in a bionic hand, sort of symbolizing that it's blown up or overheated before, and I had two, one from the Ork Riders and one from the knobs. I ended up going with the knob because the Ork Rider one is hard to chop off, and I also in the previous video chopped off the front bit of a slugger there, so that turned out perfectly. And his wrench, it's not exactly a wrench, but it's a bunch of mechanical things and it sort of looks like a wrench. And he also has a wrench in the backpack and a repair icon. I thought that fit pretty well. He also has the option of using a kill saw, and back in the day before such a thing was a concept, it was just a power fist and I didn't like the idea of it, so I had one spare. And to future-proof the guy, I decided to magnetize him so that he could have both the wrench and the kill saw. Or in 11th or 12th edition, whatever options you might be able to have then. You can see I've chopped up the custom Mega Blaster and I think it fits perfectly on the frame. And it conveys the idea that it's a custom weapon and it's a pistol form. I also gave him some shoulder pads for that mechy aesthetic and also to hide up the seams from the magnet and from the knob arm that was a little bit difficult to put on there because of the way that kit works. Next up, a weird boy. I had a bit of trouble getting him assembled, as you'll see throughout this, but the essence of it is he has a staff and he has some chain motif and he has an arm that looks like it's casting something. I also really wanted to use this head from it's basically a spanner boy, but it fits that orc techie thing. It looks like it's augmented into his brain, like to amplify his powers, and I think it works really well. The problem is that it's a boy-sized head and this is supposed to be a knob-sized character, and originally picked this body for him, even though there was an appropriate boy-sized body, but I felt like he was still a little bit too tiny with the tiny legs and the big upper body. Yeah. And if we look at the official model, we can also see on the staff that there are some skulls and there's some what looks like parts from a custom Mega Blaster. So I rummaged through my bit collection and I came up with all kinds of things that I could potentially see me putting on instead of the axe head to make it into a staff. Teeth and skulls and trophies and spikes and techie looking things as if it's somehow harnessing the psychic energies or something. Some chains to potentially wrap around him. Yeah, I went through a lot of iterations to figure out what I wanted on there. In the end, I decided to go with the new knob body from the monopose kit. I think the pose of especially the torso and the open shirt and legs were brilliant and a better size. Unfortunately, I've glued this guy, so I had to chop him up. The glue wasn't 100% set, but it was close to, so it got a little bit messy. But we got there in the end. The only problem with this is that I won't have an original sculpt of this guy, but if I ever end up getting any more boys, I will have plenty of opportunities to have another one. Besides, I have loads and loads of knobs. So here he is, all chopped up, and as I did in my previous videos with the knob for the commando squad, I used bits of spruce to plug the gaps in his shoulders where his arms will be connected. So I managed to repose one of the arms to make it a bit more casting-ish instead of pointing downwards, and I chopped up the axe. It still has some wires on there and the chain, and even though the head is a bit small, I think it still works quite well. Really looks like the Pain Boys identified this guy as a psyker and wanted to implement some kind of amplifying thing that they stuck into his skull. Here I'm getting closer to figuring out what I want to do with the staff. I have this bit from a Stormboy jetpack, and I'm gonna use some parts of that custom Mega Blaster I chopped off to use on the Mech Boy from earlier. And I decided instead of using an Ork skull as is on the original, I used this monster skull to channel whatever energies are there. And I definitely want to be painting some OSL kind of thing effects from that skull to make it more magical. So this bottom bit from the custom Mega Blaster, I kept the wire on there and it's able to be manipulated into position by just bending it. It's a bit top heavy, the staff, but I think it works. Orks are strong, and I used a bit of an icon there to hide a bit of a bare spot that wasn't very interesting. It makes sense for there to be a glyph on there. All in all, I think this ended up being a very successful conversion. Quite a few times I almost just glued stuff together, but I am happy that I thought through some of the things and backtracked a little bit before continuing forward. I think I ended up making some decent choices here, and I am happier with them than I thought I would be going into it. And in many ways, I actually like this conversion more than the original. I was never really fond of him, but this guy I can get behind, obviously, because I made him to my specifications, right? And my vision. Here we have another character. I have a Tank Buster squad, and like many squads, the legal loadouts are in flux from edition to edition. I decided to make a Ork Knob with a rocket launcher. But I didn't want a puny rocket launcher because he's a knob, he has to have a bigger weapon. So I actually used a weapon from the Killer Cans, which is a bit heavier one. And I put that onto a pistol body, which acts as the trigger mechanism for it. And I decided that he should have a set of crosshairs on there. Unfortunately, I didn't have any more Tank Buster bombs, but I had this stick bomb launcher also from a vehicle, and I decided to put that on his back, and he got an iron jaw and a big shoulder pad. I think the Tank Buster squad finally has its leader now, and this guy definitely did skip arm day being able to fire that one-handed. He's a bit ridiculous, but I was running out of appropriate bits at this time. I think he's still a very, very cool model. Then again, with the Tank Buster squad, very specific loadouts in this edition. I have to have a guy with twin rocket pistols. So off with the arms of one of the guys. Actually, I need to make more, but I'm just making one and that's it. What I'm using here are some sluggers as the basis for the pistol, and also I have some rockets from a flyer kit. It's the one with all the rockets. I didn't build that one, I built the Daka jet. So I chopped that up and made it very short, a short rocket, and drilled a hole into the front of the pistol so it will attach in there. And I also took a regular rocket launcher and shortened it to be one-handed. These two will be just fine for a set of rocket pistols. The model is already painted, so they're getting primed and painted by themselves and then glued on once painted. So not much of a reveal shot here, but I'm happy with having this done and eventually put on there. So that's another squad fixed and legal for now. Here I have a random boy. I've been running him in both a Tank Buster squad and in a Slugger squad, but he doesn't really have to load out to fit anything legally, which is fine. But I just want to wrap that guy up. And with the addition of a pistol, he'll be a fine Slugger boy, and that's it. The thing about him is that with all the equipment that he has, he pretty much fit the criteria of a commando from the previous video. So I'm gonna make a little bundle of bits there, prime that up and paint that and attach to his backpack. Then he has all the equipment that a regular commando would have. And then I'm gonna repaint one piece of his clothing to fit with the commandos. May or may not be painted in this month. And of course I need to expand the base size because GW. I imagine I won't use this guy very often, but in stuff like Kill Team, especially if I'm doing a campaign and I need just a regular guy instead of a specialist, he can fill that role. Another guy I need to fix up is my knob with walk banner. He's again from earlier editions where kit wasn't as restricted as it is now, and also he is metal, so the banner likes to fall off. So I'm going to pin that in place and hopefully it will stick, and his slugger is no longer a viable option for him, so he needs a custom shooter. And I do not believe I have any left-handed in my collection. I think I got this guy in a trade originally without that left-handed custom shooter. I have plenty of right-handed metal custom shooters, but obviously that's not relevant for this guy. So I could possibly make something akin to what I did with the commando special shooter, but in this case I just made it into a longer barrel, which make it seem like a heavier weapon. And of course I'd like to have 2 barrels on there, but in this case I think the head cannon for me is that it just has a way higher fire rate than a normal shooter, like twice as fast, so that's why. And with that and a base extender, we are good to go, except I need to rebase, but eventually. Right, let's get into some of the normal boys from that boys sprue. These guys are the only ones I also won't have originals from. And there's a bit of a backstory to that, and it has to do with the theme. I have this theme with all of the guys with chain weapons in my Ork Army. They're done up like the ones from Space Marine. You know, the frenzied ones. They usually have spikes and red armor and goes into a frenzy mode and has chain weapons. So everything that has a chain weapon in my army has a red top knot, maybe an iron jaw, spiky armor on there. And in previous editions, these guys were actually my art boys, which was a normal boy squad, but with a better armor save. And I believe maybe a better weapon skill. There's one exception to my squad, and that's this guy, Gunther, or as I say, Günther. He got promoted to the art boys because he survived an outrageous amount of cover saves that won me a game. Statistically, he should not have made all of those cover saves. So he got promoted. He's the only guy without a top knot. He got loads of equipment and armor thrown on there. And this is back in, I want to say, start of 5th edition. But yeah, so these guys with chain weapons, I did them up with a different head and I reposted so that they are not identical to each other. They're also got some spiky shoulders and they're ready to be added to the squad once painted. Now we're into the monopose guys, and I decided to do a bit of conversion on all of them. Head swaps, arm swaps, just to make sure that they are all unique. The blob of monopose guys running towards you is something I don't want to start now that all of my previous models are multi-part ones. They're not the easiest ones to put heads on especially, but definitely doable. Just have to be a bit brave and just do it, and you will fix the problems that pop up along the way. I didn't fail on any of them in my own opinion. It's neat how much just a simple head swap, a shoulder pad, or a different weapon really helps distinguish them. I especially like this guy. To be honest, I think I'm gonna call him like Orgadon or something. He definitely has strong vibes of 30k Abaddon, in my opinion, with the shoulder pads, the hair, the pose. I don't know, it was just a happy accident, to be honest. So with the commanders from the previous video, which I was unsure if this and the previous video was going to be one in this shot, so that's a lot of conversions. I did all of these conversions in one night, more or less, a little bit more than one night, which was a lot of fun. We're nearing the end of Orktober on the calendar. I've made something that I enjoyed very, very much, which is a piece of terrain. At the time of recording, it's still not done, but I think it's pretty cool as it is. But then I have to edit and do voiceover and all that. And with the amount of fun I had making that piece of terrain, I'm definitely going to be making more, even though it doesn't have a specific purpose right now. I have so many ideas. I'll get into that in that video. So if you like orky stuff, there will be more orky stuff on the channel. And if you watched all the way through my ramblings, and I want to thank you for that. And hopefully I will see you again in another video. Maybe, hopefully. Until then, cheers.